can present whichever bill you'd like to first, Senator.
Your preference.
You have so many.
There's three.
Okay.
You want to go?
Item 2, go ahead.
Which one do you want?
How about Senate Bill 32?
I can do that. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Chair Williams and your staff, for working with my staff. I appreciate that, and myself. We're taking the suggested amendment that is printed out on page 4 in the analysis. That may look familiar to you. It certainly does to me. It was in my bill last year. But I would be happy to take this again and offer also an author amendment to double join my bill with Assembly Bill 197. And I do note that you're a co-author on both bills, so this should work just fine with me. And I wanted to, though, ask you, and it's up to you, of course, whether to include the amendment in Assembly Bill 197. Which may make more sense because one is a straight target bill and one is the other.
Well, because we will not hear 197 in this committee, I think it would be appropriate to have the amendment in your bill because 197 will not be coming through this committee.
Because it's, but the measure will be double joined. Would you want that in this committee? That was
if that helps you, Senator, absolutely.
But that was a suggestion with your, I think your staff and my staff. Did I get that right?
We can only amend the bill before us, so we could make it contingent on AB 197. The amendments to 197 are up to the Senate.
Yes, it'll be in my. I feel fairly comfortable that it'll be taken in my.
Great. All right. So we will have both the co-join and the ARB amendments, accountability provisions.
Right. So, and that was consistent with last year as well. And I do have a history of co-joining and working well with double joining with the Assembly. I was just thinking back on it. Last year it was with Jackie Irwin on development disabled. The year before that with Luisa Leo, we double joined some bills together on adjudication of groundwater basins. Prior to that, Roger Dickinson, double joining measures related to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and with Assemblymember Perea regarding the expenditure of $118. So good history with that, and I look forward to working with Assemblymember Garcia. We've had multiple meetings already. So let's talk a little bit about this bill, if I may. Now, one question you asked me I thought I'd start out with is, so what's different than last year? Well, first of all, I should point out whether it was the Clean Car Law or AB 32, they were all 2-year bills. Sometimes things take a little bit to go through process. But this bill particularly is different than last year because now it is consistent with the governor's already issued executive order in April. He had issued an executive order 2015 to go back to 2030 targets, extension from 2020 to 2030. My bill prior to this was at 2050. That's one reason we requested to come back to your committee this year for that purpose alone. Midterm targets like that make sense to me. That's how we had AB 32. It was Governor Schwarzenegger's midterm targets when he and I worked together back in 2006. So this will be consistent with the governor's executive order. What it does simply is codifies the governor's executive order, which I always think is a good thing for the legislature to do. Put things in statute and send that signal. Second difference that has occurred over the last 18 months, I think I'm up to 27 or 28 meetings with Assembly members, many of them individual meetings, working with them together, listening to concerns. Many of those concerns are being articulated in Assemblymember Garcia's bill, but one of them was the length of the bill, so 2030 meets those tests too. Also, we have 14 Assembly co-authors, and I've had multiple meetings with businesses and leadership in both houses in regards to these policies. For those of us who went to Paris, we got a sense of urgency, and we also I heard from many businesses about the importance of targets, but also working with Assemblymember Garcia on 197. I think it's really important to institute into these policies accountability, transparency, and equity. He'll have policies that you will see soon enough in Assembly Bill 197 that will address some of those issues. But the third major change from last time is the auctions in May. For those of you who followed the auctions in May regarding the major emitters on buying allowances, they were not as successful as in past years. Cap and trade has been around since 2011. It's simply just one of the emission reductions policies in AB 32, along with vehicles and energy efficiency appliances and the renewable portfolio standard and low carbon fuel standard. There was cap and trade. So one of the things I heard from so many people, including many business leaders, they want a clear market signal that these policies will be around post-2020. They are ready for investment and innovation. They want certainty that these markets will be available and in statute, which makes it a clear signal to them, a clearer signal than just an executive order through 2030. You might not have realized that 60% of all the U.S. Capital money for investment came to California because of our policies the last 10 years. So market certainty and signals are important. That auction in May, they're waiting to see what the legislature will do this year. Do you buy allowances if you don't think these policies are extending past 2020? Probably not. You might wait a while and delay. So it's important in that regards to make sure that the legislature is supportive of these policies, but also, this is where it becomes really important to me, it's my last year in office, that the legislature will provide the oversight and become the champions in the Assembly and the Senate in regards to these policies. Are they fair? Are they equitable? Are they cost effective? All the umbrella policies underneath SB 32 will be up to future legislators. Do you want to change some of the policies? Do you want to add to them? All under your purview and future legislators' purview. So this bill extends the targets, extends the market signals to 2030, consistent with the governor's executive order. So, in order to open up any discussion you may have, industry that has met with me and businesses have met with me said that the 2030 targets are reasonable, they're realistic. We know we're on track to meet our 2020 targets. They have been successful. I look forward to future legislators implementing these policies for many years to come. Climate change and the impacts to California are real. We have benefited from these policies. Can we all do better collectively together by working to make sure that they're equitable, fair, and done well? Absolutely. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Witnesses, 2 minutes each.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Quentin Foster on behalf of the California Environmental Justice Alliance. We are a statewide coalition of grassroots community-based organizations. We represent well over 30,000 low-income communities and communities of color all across the state. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to convey our strong support of this bill. This is critical for advancing not just the state's climate leadership, but also California's environmental justice priorities. Our state and environmental justice communities need a strong cap on greenhouse gas emissions. As Senator Pavley stated, SB 32 is a critical piece of a two-part policy package. Part one, which this bill explicitly addresses, is targets. SB 32 identifies the goals that we need to reach as a state if we're going to address the consequences of climate change, as she so eloquently stated. We know that climate change will hit and is already hitting low-income communities and communities of color first and worst. People of color are generally more likely to be close to our biggest greenhouse gas emitters. The people living closest to the significant GHG emitters are disproportionately people of color, according to research by multiple academics. This is why we need to be bold. We need aggressive climate policies like SB 32 and the adjoined AB 197 with strong targets and regulatory policies that will help our state see direct emission reductions. We believe SB 32 can help California achieve a win-win solution, improve air quality in overburdened communities, improve public health, and reduce the devastating impacts of climate change. Senator Pavley has been working collaboratively with partners in the Assembly, in particular Mr. Eduardo Garcia, to illustrate a vision of 3 guiding principles for our state's climate policy: accountability, transparency, and equity. I am confident that together, Senator Pavley, with Mr. Garcia, and those of you in the Assembly will identify the areas in which our state's climate policy can also serve productively to make our people healthier, more resilient, and more economically stable. Finally, members, with the growth of a clean energy economy, so too comes an opportunity to lift up communities across the state with new jobs, cleaner air, cleaner water, and more equitable distribution of other co-benefits that a bill like SB 32 promises to bring.
Thank you, Quentin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members, and Senator Pavley for the opportunity to share with all of you how the carbon policy has helped and impacted my family's life. My name is Carlos Velasquez, and I live in Stockton with my wife and 3 kids. We're a ministry that helps work with families, young people, adults, married couples, and I'm committed to helping my community. I understand that the importance of cleaning up our air and reducing carbon emissions. I didn't think that our neighborhood could afford to do our part. But I had a 95 Honda that needed a lot of work. There was smoke coming out of the tailpipe. It would create black cloud. I actually kind of felt bad for the people behind us. They would just get this big old cloud dust on their car. But it was our only way of transportation. Earlier this year, I was given the opportunity of a lifetime to replace my old car through the Enhanced Fleet Modernization Program, or the EFMP Plus Up, replacing my old car with a new hybrid that has been a win-win for my family. We can now drive a car that we don't have to worry about black clouds or dripping motor oil, and it feels good knowing that we're not polluting the air or affecting our environment. It is great with the money that we're saving on the fuel and the maintenance every single month that we're literally saving like 50% financially. That helps us to meet that car payment monthly. I understand that the state can help clean up our air, reduce carbon emissions, and improve the lives of people in our community. I'm in great hopes that with all of you, you'll continue adopting policies in disadvantaged communities, reducing pollution, and to improve the quality of life. It is exciting to be a part of this historic moment and time to build to not only help the world and our environment, but also the fact that it has made a true impact in my family's life. So thank you for this opportunity to share with you this afternoon.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support, just state your name, organization, and your support.
Good afternoon, Bonnie Holmes-Jen with the American Lung Association in California. We also submitted a letter from over 25 health and medical organizations and over a dozen Doctors for Climate Health.
Jamie Go on behalf of the Big Sur Land Trust, the Bolsa Chica Land Trust, as well as the Save the Redwoods League in support.
Katrina Robinson on behalf of California Trout and the Ocean Conservancy in support.
Ahram Fazali on behalf of Communities for a Better Environment in support.
Alfredo Redondo on behalf of the California Urban Forest Council, the California Association of Resource Conservation Districts, and the Sonoma County Ag Preservation and Open Space District in support.
Danielle Lynch on behalf of the California Association of Local Conservation Corps in support.
Alicia Rivera, Communities for a Better Environment in support.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land in support.
Good afternoon, Michelle Hassan, CCAJ, Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice in support.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriel Guerrero, and I'm a Community for a Better Environment in support.
Ami Raval on behalf of the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, as well as public advocates in support.
Maria Socorro Vasquez, Communities for Better Environment. I'm in support.
Delia Ortega on behalf of Communities for a Better Environment in support.
Linda Bassett, UTLA, Human Rights Committee.
In support.
Michelle Passero with the Nature Conservancy in support. Kim Shiner on behalf of Ceres and Calcan in support. Thank you.
Melissa Romero with Californians Against Waste in support.
Jason Barbos, Union of Concerned Scientists, support.
Bill McGavin, Coalition for Clean Air, support of SB 32.
Juan Altamirano on behalf of Audubon, California, in strong support.
Kathy Durbin on behalf of 350 Bay Area, 350 Sacramento, 350 San Diego, Climate 911, and Fossil Free California.
Alice Kessler on behalf of Calpine Corporation, proud to be the first energy company in support of the bill.
Humberto Lugo with the Comité Cívico del Valle, Imperial County, and Riverside counties, and the Ivan Environmental Justice Enforcement Monitoring Network.
Annie Nodoff, Natural Resources Defense Council, in support.
Justin Milan for the U.S. Green Building Council and Stop Waste in Alameda, in support.
Raquel Mason, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles, in support.
Holly Tara on behalf of Carbon Cycle Institute, in support.
Rick Bettis on behalf of the Sacramento chapters of Sierra Club, PSR, Breathe California, and the League of Women Voters, in support.
Hello, Israel Cruz representing Comité Cívico del Valle, Imperial County, and Coachella Valley, in support.
Mauro Renteria on behalf of Commuters for Better Environment, in support.
Magali Sanchez Hall on behalf of CBE, Emerge, a resident of Wilmington, California, and UCLA North American Integration and Development Center, in support.
Anaí Rosas on behalf of Eastern Communities for Environmental Justice and Youth in Action, in support.
Taylor Thomas with East Yard Communities for Environmental Justice, in support.
Jamie Miner on behalf of Next Gen Climate Action and Marine Clean Energy, in support.
Julia Levin, Bioenergy Association of California, in support.
Julie Malinowski Ball on behalf of the California Biomass Energy Alliance, in support.
Ed Behrens on behalf of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, in support.
Angel Fong from Environment California, in support.
Good afternoon, Carrie Timmer from the Sierra Business Council, in support. Thank you.
Claire Scott on behalf of the Fresno Economic Opportunities Commission, in support.
Autumn Ogden with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, also in support.
Josh Hanthorne, Defenders of Wildlife, in support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, in support.
Andrea York on behalf of Clean Power Campaign, in support.
Jenna Price with the California League of Conservation Voters, in support.
Rod Brewer for Southern California Edison, here in support.
Ryan Kenney, Clean Energy Renewables, in support.
Kat DeBerg with the Health Officers Association of California, in support.
Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, in support.
Go, Sylvia.
Thanks. Sylvia Solis Shaw on behalf of Advanced Energy Economy, on behalf of City of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, on behalf of the City of Santa Monica, and on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Sonoma County, all in strong support.
Mr. Chair and members, Michael Pimentel with the California Transit Association, San Mateo County Transit District, Caltrain, and Solano County Transit, all in support. Ask for your aye vote.
Mark Fenstermaker on behalf of the Sonoma County Water Agency, the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, and the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, in support.
Luis Bourgeois on behalf of the Environmental Defense Fund, in support.
Corey Bullis on behalf of CalSTART, in support.
Jennifer Fearing on behalf of the Humane Society of the United States, in support.
Jeannie Wardweller for the California Bicycle Coalition, in support.
Joshua Stark on behalf of Transform, in support.
Paul Gonzalez representing the South Coast Air Quality Management District, in support.
Witnesses in opposition? If you could just surrender up one more of those seats.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael Shaw with the California Manufacturers and Technology Association. And I have to say this, I mean, the amendments I think were good to see, some additional language being added back into the bill that had been stripped out previously. However, we would point out that the accountability, I think, is still lacking in this area, and that there needs to be greater oversight of the legislature. Generally, we see this as being a half measure. We're here talking about a goal beyond 2020, which is something that there's been quite a bit of discussion of. There are executive orders outstanding on this issue. However, we have no discussion of some of the critical potential failures of the existing policy or challenges that we're currently facing. The author mentioned the recent auction here in May as being an issue and a reason why we need to do this, and we would agree that there is certainly a reason that we need to have a discussion about this and to look ahead to address the uncertainty that exists. However, when we look at the bill as it is now, it fails to address really what are the key issues regarding the uncertainty in the market. It wasn't about a goal beyond 2020. It was about whether or not the auction itself will be valid. It was about whether or not there's sufficient need. There were a number of other factors that went into place, and so I would say that there are many other considerations that we need to take a look at. Further, the bill itself fails to address what is one of the core issues, the cap and trade program. The LAO, the Legislative Counsel's Office, both note that there's a limitation of that beyond 2020, in that the AB 32, the original legislation, authorized a limited period of time for that. And that the way that those revenues are being invested is also not generating a very cost-effective return in terms of GHG reductions. Those questions have been asked, and unfortunately, SB 32, as it is, does not yet answer those. And we have yet to see from the Air Resources Board, I think, strong answers to this legislature regarding how they're going to go about achieving those reductions, what the cost effectiveness of that is, and answering that in a sufficient way for this legislature. There have been multiple requests for reports, and some of those are pending, including a request that is due out the end of this week.
Thank you.
If we want to make a serious effort, we need to address all of those things together. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members, Richard Lyon on behalf of the California Building Industry Association, also here on behalf of a number of real estate development and land use business groups that have submitted a letter on June 22nd. As we stated last year, and we've told Senator Pavley in a number of meetings, we are not opposed to the general concept of the state adopting a post-2020 climate goal. We are opposed to the bill in its current form, and Senator Pavley has correctly identified that the bill establishes a 2030 goal past 2020. So that it does, and therein lies the problem for us. The bill fails to acknowledge and to address a decade's worth of learned experience about the challenges, the uncertainty, and the litigation risks for construction and development activity of all types in meeting the state's long-term goals. And absent clear direction as this bill moves forward from the legislature, we have CEQA as the default tool that public agencies and the project proponents have to use to ensure that both their development projects and their development plans are consistent with the state goals. And we know from experience that CEQA and greenhouse gas are not a good fit. CEQA envisions, I should say, an analysis of localized impacts on a project-by-project basis, and climate change by its very nature is global in nature. It is the opposite of localized. And the climate impacts that we're most concerned with are the cumulative impacts, the buildup over time of concentrations of carbon in the atmosphere. So we have a speculative process at best with little guidance to lead agencies and to project proponents that force them to essentially guess about the acceptable levels of mitigation and to guess as to the feasible mitigation strategies. So if they guess right, great. If they guess wrong, or they guess in a way that doesn't comport with somebody else's opinion, then you're likely to end up in court. And at that point, judges are left to fill the void that we believe this legislature should be filling. So what can we do about it? Well, the first thing we can do is not double down on a system that both experience and our gut tells us is not up to the job and is subject to significant abuse. And the second thing, and this is important, is that we sit down and with the interested party and try to work out these issues. Now, this is something that we have offered to Senator Pavley for some time now.
Thank you. If it was the important thing, you might have started with it. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, members, Eli Garcia for the Western States Petroleum Association, in opposition to this blank check authority to the Air Resources Board.
Please state your name, your organization, and your opposition.
Amy Maga on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce in opposition.
Cynthia Corey, California Farm Bureau in opposition.
P. Anthony Thomas representing the California Independent Petroleum Association in opposition.
Ken DeVore on behalf of the National Federation of Independent Business in opposition.
Mr. Chair and members, Tricia Geringer, Agricultural Council of California in opposition.
Chair and members, Kelly Jensen representing the California Trucking Association, opposed unless amended. We'd like some recognition that if investments are made, trucking companies are able to recoup those investments going forward. Thank you.
Brian White here on behalf of the Western United Dairymen. We are opposed to the bill, concerned about the baseline in this bill versus what you're going to hear with another bill in a couple of minutes. They're completely two different baselines. Thank you.
Yeli Goverage with the California Association of Realtors, opposed unless amended to address the equity issue which will not be reached if you drive up the cost of housing. Thank you.
Peter Blocker, California Taxpayers Association, or in opposition.
To the committee. Questions, comments from the committee? There's a motion and a second by Garcia. Chair's recommendation is aye. We do need to give both certainty and direction. I do support this. I would say that your approach this year has been really productive in working with Assemblymember Garcia, and I think that shows a great deal of faith to co-join the bills and to work together between houses, and I think that should be rewarded. Chair's recommendation is aye. Please call the roll. Would you like to close?
I would just briefly. Some of these same arguments we might have heard 10 years ago, but we had 45 Assembly co-authors for AB 32. I think we look back in 10 years. Successful? Yes. More oversight by the legislature? It's always our job and responsibility to do that. I think when you see some suggestions in Assemblymember Garcia's bill, like a standing committee made up of bicameral, two houses, and looking at these kinds of pieces of legislation, there's nothing in this bill that prevents future legislators from changing or modifying the contents, the policies within this particular measure. The targets are critically important. Things that are in statute now can always be addressed or changed, if you will. When I talk to businesses, they said what we want is a flexible, adjustable framework. Give us the target so we know it's certainty that we make those investments in energy efficiency and everything, that those policies will be there. Don't overprescribe how we should do it or shouldn't do it. Don't pick winners and losers. Like you and I, Chair Williams, especially in the biofuels and the alternative fuel situation, they just want a market. They want to know that there will be business opportunities available. We cannot wait 2 or 3 more years till 2020 to make these decisions, so we're going to lose that investment opportunity and the jobs that come with it. We have a success story to tell. I've met with most of these people individually over the years. Welcome to do that. We have a little break coming up. So I want to thank you for, if you will, sort of steering us in the right direction by working collaboratively with Assemblymember Garcia. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Chair's recommendation is, Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to step out. My apologies. I just have, is it a question? I have a question. Is that okay, or is it too late?
Well, she just did a close, but if
My
you want to
apologies.
keep it brief, go.
I'll try to be. First of all, Senator, I'm very supportive of your bill. Actually, I'm a co-author, as I recall.
Yes, you are.
But I'm wondering, kind of wondering how this would affect some of the small trucking companies who have already complied with current ARB regulations, and with regard to recent purchases of new equipment. I have like 30 of these small trucking companies in my very large rural district. They're already compliant. Is it possible to provide some length of time for these companies to actually use the life of their usable equipment so that money doesn't grow on trees in my district?
Yeah. The good news is for this.
Trees grow in my district, though.
Yes, I like those too. And I like them better vertically than horizontally. But what's good about this is a framework. This is you, the legislature, fulfill the policies. If there's cap and trade going forward, you establish the priorities and those expenditures. So we have been investing in trucks becoming cleaner. That should continue. I know who gets the money is always uncertain, but you hold in your hands the power with your 41 people in the legislature of reprioritizing what you think should be the highest priorities for, number one, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but two, doing it in a cost-effective way, fairness over the state, which is always, I know the North Coast well, right? I know your issues well, along with the co-benefits of cleaning up the air and producing in-state jobs. Those are the goals. How you fill in that framework and targets moving forward, up to you. I certainly, I've worked with legislators collaboratively on that, and if there's whatever agency, CARB isn't the only agency out there, right? Energy Commission, PUC, Strategic Growth Council, there's 8 state agencies involved in carrying out AB 32, and I think a greater involvement by the legislature would be productive.
Well, one of my concerns is always that, while we may be disadvantaged communities in many ways, socioeconomically, we are not considered disadvantaged communities as far as EnviroScan goes.
Gomez has a bill that relates to that, not just using Cal EnviroScreen, but looking at social equity issues just based on economic circumstances. And so that may be a vehicle, too.
Just advocating for my district.
You do that very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chair's recommendation is aye. The amendments have been accepted. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended, and we refer to appropriations. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones? Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Gomez? Hadley? Harper?
No.
Harper, no. McCarty? Stone? Wood?
Aye.
Wood, aye.
Thank you, Senator. I'll ask you to take up your second bill. Just want to remind folks, we are now, it is on the eve of 5 o'clock, and we are only halfway through the bills, so we want to proceed with alacrity